Hello, welcome to week 7's lecture. Sorry, it's taken me a little bit here to get our lecture posted. I hope by now you're starting to see some of the big picture concepts around the economy and economic political forces start to tie into our personal financial situation. So the big picture, the things happening in US society and even more broadly in the free global market, it really does have an impact on our cost of living, employment, the cost of goods and services that we purchase. It's all interconnected. So I hope you're starting to see that. This week, we are going to touch on the cost of housing, buying versus renting, and also credit, because credit is very much a piece of qualifying for buying a home and even renting an apartment. So everybody's been engaging in our forum this week. What do you think of the advantages of buying a home or over renting and vice versa? Keep up the great work. For your journal this week, I'd like you to address this. Your midterm is due this Sunday, May 17th. What is your plan for completing your FYS 207 midterm? What questions and concerns do you have about successfully completing this class? And what questions and concerns do you have about successfully completing other classes? This is a chance for you to vent, ask questions. If something comes up that you have immediate concerns about, that you'd like answers for, just email me directly. And that way you're not waiting to have that answered until I grade. So quickly, let's touch base on the midterm. Again, it's called the $1 billion fix. This is a proposal to Jeff Bezos about identifying a problem and creating a proposal for how you want to address that problem. And you have up to $1 billion, right? This is $1 million times 1,000 is $1 billion. It's a lot of money. So I want to make sure that you are doing your best with the assignment. Please make sure your problem statement is clear. Why is the problem that you articulate a real world problem and issue? Please get specific and explain who it impacts and why. For example, just saying polar bears are dying, that doesn't necessarily matter to me, right? I need you to explain to me why we need polar bears and why it's important for them not to die. So be thorough in your problem statement. And then costs. So take some time to just brainstorm a list about everything it takes to apply your solution. If you're buying water filters, who's handing them out? If you are creating programs, who's going to staff your programs? Really be thorough. And cost can be simple estimates. If you can kind of find a standard, like maybe looking at, you can go to Glassdoor, which is an employment website where it lists jobs and approximately how much the salaries are. You can go there. You can look at, government websites that may be helpful. You could use Craigslist to determine how much it costs to rent a commercial space. Get creative about where you find your information. It doesn't have to be exact, but try to get a sense of where the ballpark is to put together, an estimate on how you're going to spend this money. And you don't have to link costs. Just make sure that, you're not spending $100 on a box of tissue, okay? So let's dive into the conversation about renting versus buying, okay? Kind of ties back to our forum. You've been thinking about this already. So the pros of renting, it's not a long-term commitment, right? You are able to quickly relocate. You don't have to worry about selling a home. And I think one of the biggest benefits is repairs are the responsibility of the owner, though costs can get passed down to the renter. The vast majority of the expenses and liability fall on the owner. The cons are it can be less stable. The owner can ask you to move. When your lease comes due, they can change the terms. They can raise rent on you again when your lease changes. You might be able to do some minor painting or hang a picture on a wall, but you can't, tear down a wall or completely remodel. And your money, though it might build your credit to rent in some senses, it doesn't build your assets. Home ownership is with each mortgage payment, you own a little bit more of your home. Okay. You can make personalized touches or do major renovations, and you may have more space, such as like a backyard. Cons are that you have to save up a significant chunk of money and plan and budget to make this a reality. And there are more complex responsibilities. You're going to be paying property tax and maybe mortgage insurance. So these are just all things to consider. So is there a good reason to buy? Lawrence Yoon says a typical homeowner has a net worth that was almost $200,000, while renters was just above $5,000. So think about that. Net worth is your wealth. So a typical homeowner has just shy of $200,000 of wealth, where renters, it's significantly less. So another good reason to buy is this trend line, which is Freddie Mac is a government lending entity. So you can see the value of homes and what they sell for is just steadily going up, up, up. So we can't have the conversation about the cost of buying a home without talking about correlation and causation. We also can't talk about net worth and building wealth without talking about correlation and causation. And that is, how does one thing lead to another? So correlation is where one attribute commonly occurs alongside another attribute. And it doesn't have to appear 100% of the time to be correlated. Okay. Causation is where one attribute can cause another attribute. It doesn't have to cause it 100% of the time to be considered causation. So I'll give you a fun example that Marshall, our director, put together. So this picture here, this is Marshall Guthrie, the director of SEP, and this is his wife, Megan, and she is the assistant director for student affairs. This is their daughter, Benny, and here are, I'm not sure if these are Marshall's parents or if these are Megan's parents, but they are a group of pretty tall people. So in a recent survey, 80% of people with the last name Guthrie stand at 5'8" or taller. Is Guthrie, the last name Guthrie, attributed to height? And is it attributed by correlation, causation, or both? So a quick test. Would changing your last name to Guthrie make you taller? Of course not. Then you are likely looking at correlation, not causation, as the last name does not cause somebody to be taller. So just because somebody has the last name Guthrie does not mean that they'll be tall. There may be a correlating relationship, but the last name Guthrie does not automatically make somebody taller. Okay, so Lawrence Yoon said, typical homeowner, their net worth was close to $200,000, while that of a renter was about $5,000. Could buying a home cause you to retain more of your wealth or grow your wealth in some way? How? Perhaps a higher net worth and homeownership appears alongside each other, correlation, but does not cause the other. Could having a higher net worth make it a little more easy for you to buy a house? Could having a lower net worth make it less likely or less easy to buy a house? I think the answer would be yes. Just something for you to consider. If you're curious about if it makes more sense financially for you or someone you know to buy versus rent, this calculator here is really cool. I'm not going to go over it now. You can explore it on your own. Basically, it looks at if you were to buy or rent today, would you lose money over a certain period of time? Or would you pay less for your housing over a certain period of time? So check it out. It's pretty cool. When you buy a house, you're going to put down a down payment, right? That's a significant amount of cash up front. So usually that's between 10 and 20%. So let's say you pay somewhere in the middle, 10%, and you're looking to buy a $250,000 house. So that means $25,000 you would need for a down payment plus closing costs, which is between 1 and 2% of the home price, right? So you might be looking at adding another $5,000 or so on top of your down payment. You're also going to be paying interest, so that you're not just paying the principal, you're paying interest on the money you borrow. You also have to pay for property taxes and home insurance and even mortgage insurance. Renting costs are typically a down payment, some sort of security deposit, which is between 1 and 2 months rent. You might pay a finding fee for a broker, monthly rent, renter's insurance, and moving costs. So it's not cheap, right? But it's not as expensive. Maybe if you're renting a $1,200 apartment, you have to put down the first month's rent, and then you may also have to put down a $1,200 deposit, and then maybe you spend another $500 on moving. So you might be out about $3,000 for your first apartment, but it's a whole lot less than buying a home. And if you have roommates, you might be sharing some of those upfront costs. So when it comes to buying a home, you would call the down payment an opportunity cost. You're using a limited resource that you have, and it can only be used for that thing. So if you put down $25,000 or $30,000 towards buying a new home, you can only use it for the down payment, right? It's not going to go towards other things like a new car or a vacation. So just know that if you save up $30,000 to buy a home, once you put down that down payment, that money has now been transferred into home ownership, and it's no longer liquid. It's no longer there for you to spend on other things. So I'm going to stop here, and we will resume with the next recording.